But if you're anything like me, you really want to understand some of the, the foundation behind it. Why is it important? Why does it make you a more effective seller? And I think that using the example of behavioral psychology is quite a powerful way of explaining that. So I'm going to start with quite a provocative statement, if I may, Sarah. So I'm going to start by saying that you, myself, everyone listening on the call are all cave people, I'm afraid to say. So I hope I haven't lost too many people on the call by saying that. But I'll kind of go into a little bit what I mean. So we as human beings essentially are governed by two operating systems. We've got what's called our system 1 brain and our system 2 brain. So our system 2 brain, which is otherwise known as our caveman or cave person brain, has really been kind of like the dominant force for hundreds of thousands of years. And it worked very well in a very static environment where it was hugely effective. It works by essentially generating automatic responses that give us a competitive advantage to survive and thrive. So it very much acts in a non-rational, fast, instinctive, automatic manner. So if you think back to the days where we were living in caves and we were running away from saber-toothed tigers and constantly hunting for food, it was very effective. You don't want to be kind of, if a saber-toothed tiger is running towards you, you don't want to be spending 20 minutes debating what kind of saber-toothed tiger is it, what's the best possible direction to run, you're just going to run. So that's why it was such an effective operating system for us to use. Obviously, the problem is now that the world has very much evolved, and we don't live in a world where it's full of automatic responses. It requires us to take more of a kind of rational approach to things. And that's really where our system 2 brain comes in. It's very much the kind of rational, calculated sort of part of the brain, which is far more kind of compatible with 21st century living. The problem is our system 2 brains typically only develop around the age of 25, and our system 1 brain fully develops 10 years prior to that. So we're very much kind of system 1 dominated, which is why I was referring to everyone as cave people. So basically, we're working on outdated operating systems. Now, this is hugely effective, I should say hugely important when we're considering the way that we're selling. So really, when we're selling, if we're trying to sell effectively, it really requires us to engage with our customers' system 2 brains rather than their system 1 brain. So, if we're selling, potentially a one-off product, it's very cheap, you don't necessarily have to think about retaining or upselling the client, then kind of interacting with the system 1 brain can potentially work, because the customer can kind of very quickly process what you do, look at the price and say, okay, let's go with it. The vast majority of sales today is a lot more complicated. It's, it's subscription based. It's, got a lot of products and features that customers have to consider. Obviously, the competition is much larger as well. And so really, you want to be interacting with that more rational part of the brain, more calculated part of the brain, because that's where they're going to be best positioned to make these decisions around more complicated, expensive purchases. And you can only really do that if you're being consultative. That's really the best way to engage with that system 2 brain. If you're being too transactional, unfortunately, it's going to mean that you're interacting with that system 1 brain. And that's the portion of the brain that just cannot deal with, big decisions, long-term commitments, expensive commitments. And so that's kind of, in a very brief nutshell, and I would definitely encourage listeners to kind of read a little bit more about this. Certainly some of the theory behind my consultative selling is important.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's so funny because evolution obviously built that piece of the brain, the effective, system 1 brain that was very useful. And then we almost are kind of like adjacent to evolution now, where because people don't die of the things that they would have in the wild, we don't evolve at the same rate. So we're not able to evolve a system 1 brain in the world that requires it. It's something that's got to be done by each human being. Like, you've got to make that conscious decision to go out there and learn how to use it. How can people do that? How can people work to engage that side of their brain when their instincts don't want them to use that most of the time?
So being consultative is a skill, ultimately. That's what it boils down to. No one's born consultative. It's something that you learn and develop as you kind of grow into your career. And so with any skill, it can be learned and practiced. And the more that it's practiced, the better it's developed. I would say for salespeople, I would really take the word consultative very literally, but I would actually really think about yourself as consultants for your clients. Whenever I speak to the most effective salespeople, in our team or with other companies that we work with, if I ask them to describe their role, they'll tell me something in the lines of, they see themselves as a trusted advisor who are in possession of a solution that can help solve their clients' pain points or achieve a goal they're aspiring to achieve. Now, of course, the old additives of, being a hunter and closing as many deals is very true as well, and ultimately the name of the game in sales. But I think that they understand crucially that to achieve the latter, closing as many deals as possible, you really need to understand how you can add value to your customers, because if you don't do that, you're really limiting the number of sales that you can make. So I think one thing that you can do potentially is your next client meeting, actually pretend that you have been hired by the company as an external consultant to go in and help address a problem that they're having or achieve a goal that they want to achieve. And really kind of put yourself in that mindset of a consultant. What would a consultant do to be effective in their role? They're going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to let the client speak for the vast majority of time. So again, going back to the example before, if you're someone that tends to speak for the vast majority of the conversation, try and scale yourself back to speaking 50% less and getting your client to speak 50% more. Challenge yourself to ask as many valuable questions. I wouldn't say ask questions just for the sake of it, questions that are going to help your customer and yourself obviously understand your customer better. But really kind of challenge yourself to see how many questions can you ask before you then have to start talking about your products and services and costs, etc. And see if you can better it then for the next meeting, and kind of, almost make a game of it. I think it's the easiest way to start, changing your mindset and becoming more consultative.
Very cool. And how can leaders of salespeople and sales teams support in encouraging this type of skill?
So I think it comes back to what we were saying before about onboarding. I think it's very, very important to make sure there's a big element of training your sales reps on the markets that they're selling in, the customers that they're selling to, so that they're more confident to go in and have those conversations. The other thing to bear in mind as well is that the more kind of conversations you start having like this, and the more you start to understand your customers, the more you can then transfer that into other meetings. Obviously you still need to do your due diligence with whichever meeting that you're going into, because every business is different. But inevitably there are going to be common threads there between, certain customers. You can utilize that to your advantage. So that's definitely one thing. I would also say, looking at how salespeople are incentivized. A lot of the targets are monthly, quarterly, annually, revenue targets. How many deals can you close? How much revenue you can bring in? Whereas what I've experienced in other companies is actually having behavioral targets as well. So encouraging salespeople to act in a more consultative manner, ask more questions, come back with more information from your client meetings, maybe that you can then present internally to yourself and other team members. Because ultimately salespeople are working on incentives and commissions. So I think if they're not incentivized to act consultatively, I think it's harder to change that mindset. So kind of putting a bigger spotlight on that will definitely help for sure.
Cool. And Similarweb, of course, supports businesses in some way to sell more consultatively. How exactly do you guys do that?
So Similarweb, as you were saying before, we're a market intelligence tool. We essentially provide you a unique data set into tens of millions of e-commerce websites and businesses that really kind of help sales reps understand what really matters to their prospects and how to engage with them. It comes in the form of a SaaS product and an API offering. So, for example, a classic use case that we have with our customers is helping them to understand or capitalize on businesses that are growing, in a cross-border manner. So, if you're selling to businesses that want to expand cross-border, in a cross-border fashion, you need to first understand, where they're operating, how successful they are today, and what the opportunities are. Really, really good example of this is another logistics company that we work with.